We're just a few lessons here and a few verses, but they pack a punch for sure.
For sure.
So I'm sure that a lot of us will have a lot to say about them. And I know that I read quite a bit, and so it'll be interesting where it goes tonight. So why don't we start with prayer?
Okay.
Oh, dear Lord, thank you for letting us come together as we belong to you, and which is freedom. And for that, I am grateful and humbled. And I just ask that you be with us today and let us hear your word the way it's meant to be heard, and that we can discuss it the way that we've interpreted that word, and all of it to come closer to you, to be of service to do your will, Lord. And I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so, well, Dale, you know that you always start off, so.
Yeah, sure. That's right. I practiced all day.
That's awesome.
Okay. No. How does the Apostle Paul define the church's identity in 1 Corinthians 3:16, printed below? Do you not realize that you are God's temple and that the Spirit of God is living in you? In verse 16, the Apostle Paul informs us that the church is God's temple, literally God's sanctuary, and that the Spirit of God is living in us. During the Old Testament era, the Lord's presence dwelt in the Holy of Holies of the tabernacle, and later in the Holy of Holies of the temple. In this New Testament era, the Lord, by his Holy Spirit, dwells in the midst of each congregation, as well as personally in the heart of each individual believer. Note Revelations 1:13 and 20.
Any thoughts on that one?
Yes, I have some thoughts on that. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Yeah, I liked it.
I thought it was because I interpret it as the people, that is the congregation, are God's temple.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that you could even apply that today, if our congregation is God's temple.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's an interesting observation that Paul makes there. And he'll go on to say that anything that that hurts God's temple is that God will he will destroy that thing, that or person or whatever it is that is there to harm the temple. But the idea of the people as the temple was an interesting one. I had never thought of that about that before.
Well, it's kind of like that verse, where two or more of you, there he is in the midst of you. So that wouldn't that be part of considered a temple in a sense, because he's surrounded in us. And
absolutely. Yeah, that makes really good sense. Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just sharing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that makes really good sense. But it's
and I have some of the interpretation that I was reading today that I'll read. It's not too long. So it is crucial for interpreters of this text to understand that the verb and the second person pronoun in verse 16 are plural. Do you not know that you, plural, are the temple of God, and that God's Spirit dwells in you, plural? The image here is the Spirit dwelling not in the individual Christian, but in the gathered community. In focusing on the church, this metaphor is fully consistent with the other metaphors in chapter 3. In order to grasp the full audacity of this claim, we must remember that when Paul wrote to the Corinthians, the temple in Jerusalem was still standing and active. For Jews like Paul, the Jerusalem temple had been understood as the central locus of the divine presence in the world. Thus, when Paul now transfers this claim to the community of the predominantly Gentile Christians in Corinth, he is making a world-shattering hermeneutical move, decentering the sacred space of Judaism. How can Paul possibly assert that the church has replaced the temple? He believes that the Spirit of God is present in the community and that the community is now the place where praise and worship are rightly offered up to God. The Spirit of God no longer can be localized in the sacred building. It is to be found in the gathered community of God's elect people in Christ. Although this is a remarkable imaginative transformation of Judaism's symbolic world, we now know that such thinking was not utterly unique to the early Christians. The members of the Qumran community also understood themselves to be the temple of God, at least provisionally during their exile in the wilderness until right temple worship, according to their interpretation of the law, could be restored. At Qumran, the use of this metaphor was prompted by a protest against the corruption of the Jerusalem temple and by belief that the rigorous holiness of the covenanters could atone for the land by offering figurative sacrifices of obedient deeds. Paul, however, employs the metaphor for slightly different purposes. He speaks of the community as temple, not because of what the members of the community are doing, but because the Holy Spirit is present in the community is the place where God resides. I was like, whoa.
Well, that is audacious for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, to a Jew, it would be.
Mm-hmm.
He would say, "Oh, well, God's in the temple, and it's in the Holy of Holies." And, here you're calling this group of people a temple. So that really, that is an audacious statement. But it goes along with what Loretta said, 2 or 3 got together and I'm with
Right.
you,
Right.
saying,
Because the Holy Spirit's within us.
Yeah.
He is present. So I would imagine how I looked at this was, I guess back then, because the temple in Jerusalem, you're saying he's here too. What's, I guess it must have, to me, it looked like, he's saying that's a building, right? It's a building. Of course he's there because we're there too, but God is within us. I say, God is telling me to let you know that he's in us, and wherever 2 or 3 are gathered, he is present. So we are the temple per se.
But, to the Gentiles, the temple wouldn't mean a thing. They had temples all over town.
Right.
So that to them, it wouldn't have made any difference, but maybe this approach would make sense to them. And he's writing to Gentiles. He's not writing to Jews.
Right.
But when people worship different gods, they worshiped at their temple, and they would build temples to their gods or God, so that they would have them like in their house. They would create a temple.
Yeah.
And now Paul is saying no buildings are required.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that just playing on that with, if you were Jewish and you weren't a Christian, and you hear Paul saying that's blasphemy. But
Yeah. Yeah.
And Paul is, it's releasing God into the world.
Sure.
It's not in the building. It's not going to be there in a few years. They're going to tear it down, and he's not there. He's here with us.
Sure.
Which is strange because you're in Temecula. Some of us are in Fallbrook, and
Right.
And there he is in the midst of us.
Yeah.
Right now, and look at the space and time that we have between us.
Sure.
It's just again something that you can't even fathom,
Yeah.
Right.
And there isn't always number and strengths, because if one who's weak, the others might be stronger in certain areas. So when you're dealing with non-Christians and you're trying to witness to or show Christ in us, we're there to kind of hold each other up and help each other to show that. Because if you're alone on an island, what's the point? Because it's just you accept God and boom, it's done.
Yeah.
But if you're surrounded by tons of people, it's quite a job.
Mhm.
Quite a,
And it's, but, you know, and it even reinforces when Jesus said, you know, you tear the temple down, I will build it back up in 3 days. And they thought, what? We've been building this temple for years. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
He was referring to himself, which, you know, and that's what, to me, and Paul is saying, yes, it's within us. It's in our hearts. It's, you know, God sees what's in our hearts. That's the day of judgment. That's what he's looking at, you know. I mean, it really is beautiful. It really is beautiful that we get away from the brick and mortar or the structure. It's, of course, you know, I mean, I love a good church. I love to go to towns where I will specifically look for the Episcopal Church, and the older they are, I just love them. And then they've got the ivy and so beautiful. And yes, I feel closeness, you know, because we know what's happening in those churches, and it's beautiful. And so of course there's that part of it. But what makes it that, to me, is all the souls that have come and gone, that have, you know, worshiped there with the intent of truly being humbled by the Spirit. So, you know, there's that part too.
Sure.
well, the other thing too, when Paul is bringing it to the people, is the Israelis, I mean, the Jewish people, to be forgiven for their sins and all that, to make atonement, they had to go to that temple to make atonement. And
Yes.
think of the vast number of land that they had, and the number of people, and at certain times of the year, they all had to go and do something. And God is saying, you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to go to that temple anymore. I'm here amongst you, and that's also very powerful, because cuts down on travel time, but it makes God bigger than a building.
For sure. Sure.
I am glad that the people were still building churches, though. I am happy that, you know, we can meet, you know, in a gathering space, a place, you know. I'm still determined to go, you know, when we take our trip, you know, east, and I want to go to a Baptist church in Alabama somewhere where they are singing in the aisles and the fancy hats. I mean, I want to be a part of that. So just singing hallelujah. Oh, I can't. Just one time I want to do it. So
we should pray for the church. I believe in Lahaina was burnt down, the Episcopal Church there.
was that, I thought that was it. And I know a Catholic church is standing. There is a Catholic church there that was not touched. I was hoping it was Episcopal, but so bad.
I think the Episcopal Church fire here. John, when we were on our honeymoon, when there was a beautiful church.
Oh,
So
wow. That's so
but
sad.
yeah, from the ashes, things will rise again.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
They do have another, I think there's another volcano though that's getting kind of crazy. So over there, that they said is starting to stir. But you know, it is volcanoes that when the earth gets too hot, they erupt so that the earth does what it does to cool.
Sure.
It's kind of how, yeah. So, but I'm all about, hey, save the planet. I'm all about it. But I think God knows what he's doing with the world that he created. So I have every faith and confidence. So, okay. Thank you for that. Thank you. Look at that, 20 minutes on the first one. This is what we do. I love it.
We need to click in about 7:45. No, 6:45.
Okay.
Because it will take forever to go. What is it? 5 questions?
That's okay. We have a window of an hour and 30. We usually do about an hour and 15. So we're plugging away. I appreciate it. So who wants to read number 2?
I'll read number 2. What
Okay.
warning does the apostle give in verse 17? If anyone desecrates the temple of God, God will destroy him, for the temple of God is holy, and this is what you are. Verse 17 confronts us with a solemn warning. If anyone desecrates the temple or sanctuary of God, God will destroy him. This solemn warning had very practical significance and application for the Corinthian congregation. They were plagued with factions and divisiveness that was threatening to tear apart the body of Christ. They were tolerating the practice of immorality that was polluting the sanctuary of God. They were grossly abusing the sacrament of the Lord's Supper and thereby insulting and even blaspheming the presence and the person of Christ. They were not behaving.
They were not being. Yes. Yes, you are absolutely right. Okay.
Mhm.
I know I had more on this. Anyone have anything on this one?
Well, it just
Yes.
seems that Paul is setting it up as he's building an argument there, for Corinth in particular, because he's saying, okay, you, the congregation, are God's temple. Okay. You and as we've already discussed, no church, no, it doesn't refer to the temple in Jerusalem. It only refers to a temple that is a creation it embodies a group of people that belong to Christ. And again, I believe that the people in Corinth would understand that. They were Gentiles. They didn't need they wouldn't understand. They wouldn't fully comprehend why a temple was needed. But if they were Paul's saying, you don't need the temple. You are the temple. But then he's going on. He's carrying on the argument because he's worried about these people that are quarreling. He said that anybody that would destroy the temple, God will destroy them.
Well, he was always trying to unite. I mean, unity was a big thing for him. And he
Sure.
was really worried, I think, about it just going to pieces.
He's making a pretty stern warning here, in my view.
Mhm.
You're the temple. You the people are the temple, and anybody that tries to destroy the temple is going to be destroyed themselves. That's pretty blunt. God will destroy them. So it's kind of a warning. You keep doing what you're doing. You keep quarreling. You're desecrating the altar, and you keep doing all these other types of things. God's going to destroy you.
But it's not all of them, which is interesting because you'd have to really do something. I can't even imagine, because God is forgiving, and things come into our life. We may not be a good person for most of our lives, but redemption is there. So does the redemption come into the letter of Corinth later down the line? Because if they're reading the letter, and if you are listening to you being the person that is trying to destroy the church or trying to do all that and harm people, do you flee or do you ask forgiveness? I mean, if he says that he will destroy you, what does that to a person? I mean, I have a hard time with that, because I always feel that everything that happens in one's life, good or bad, brings you to God.
Sure.
And so I have a hard time with that, hearing that God would destroy them. So what really is the plan? Is it just a warning to say, hey, straighten up, or face the consequences? And
But do you think, Loretta, that maybe I'm thinking about what we were reading last week, where it was directed at the leaders of the church, when he said that the business about gold and silver and hay and blah, 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 that was all, the real guys are going to preach the real thing, and the other guys are going to be, telling you not really the truth. I mean, do you think there's a chance this was directed more at the leaders of the church instead of everybody else? Or no,
Well,
maybe not.
I probably would think both, because to be a leader, you need followers. If you don't have a follower, you're a leader of none. You're a leader of yourself. But if you have people following you in these evil ways or in these destructive ways, and you're following them, it's just like how does dealing with that? I always feel like at one point I have a Catholic background, and when I was little, I thought I was going to become a nun. Don't ask me. Don't ask me. Don't ask me. Don't. But one of the things that as I got older, and I look at like Father Leland and all those who lead the church, there's more responsibility put on them for the words and the deeds that they do, because they are in leadership. So is he talking to the leaders, or is he talking to those who are following the leaders, like, hey, wake up, you can't follow him, or he's not doing the right thing? And then talking to the leaders, saying, look at all the lives that you are leading down a path of destruction. So it's kind of like both of them in a way, but it's hard to
Separate.
Yeah. And again, I always feel like up until the time that you die, that's your opportunity to get right with God. A lot of deathbed conversions, people coming to God. Some people say, well, why do you have to wait to the last minute? And it was, the lesson wasn't learned until the last minute. And you can't judge a person from doing that. Now, yeah, they made a mistake during their entire life. In the last 5 minutes, they say, oh, and then God says, I forgive you, and brings you into the fold. And I would think the same thing would be with the leaders who are doing the evil. And if they are doing evil, and if it's to the point where their goal is to destroy the church, I feel that God would send people to them to correct them, or if not, yeah.
Well, this is what I have on that. So those who split the community are offending God and calling down God's judgment on their own heads. God's temple, he emphasizes, is holy. That is, it is set apart for the service of God. Those who turn the temple community into a playground for their own arrogance and spiritual vanity are solemnly warned. If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy that person. Paul then ends the section by driving home the image one more time. You, plural, are that temple. The stakes are high. God has chosen to be present in the world through a specific community of human beings. The task of apostles and church leaders is to construct that community on the foundation of Jesus Christ in such a way that the Holy Spirit will be rightly worshiped and manifested. And as Paul has already hinted in 3:1-4, the Spirit is to be manifested in the community's unity and harmony. This is not light matter. Those who damage the unity of community are interfering with God's chosen mode of presence, and they will certainly incur judgment. We should probably make a distinction between those who build with inappropriate materials and those who actively destroy the community, though the line between these actions is perilously thin. One is saved, though with singed eyebrows, while the other is destroyed. Paul calls to his readers, however, is to what he calls to his readers is to avoid both of these fates by building soundly on the gospel of Jesus Christ and forswearing pretentious and divisive claims to elite spiritual knowledge.
Hey, let me interject something here. I lived through this at St. John's. I mean, before 2006, we had a congregation, which was God's temple. And there were people, ordained people, people that consider themselves to be quite religious and holy, that felt that the unity of the temple was not important, that their own ideas were important, that their own concept of God was important, more important than the unity of the temple. And it created a lot of problems, So the thing is this, and we're just not the only group of people where this is playing out. Where you have these problems, LGBTQ and all these type of things. People have different ideas. They have different interpretations of the Bible. I wish in 2006, when we had a meeting, where we were going to have a vote as far as who's going to leave the church, I wish I'd have had this quotation from Paul, got up and told people. But the thing is, their minds were already made up.
Yeah, they were.
They were already made up. You could have read them the Declaration of Independence, and that wouldn't have made any difference at all. You could have run up the flag, and they wouldn't have cared a bit, because they made up their minds. So the thing is, this is real. This is real, and it's a danger to Christianity. So Paul's ahead of his time, way ahead of his time. And this is what you find even in the smallest town, there's a First Baptist Church, a Second Baptist Church, and maybe if you got a big enough town, you got the Third Baptist Church.
We have the Southern Baptists, and he just keeps on.
But the thing is people, they will have different views on how to conduct religion, and different views on how they on their belief in God. But it really does hurt the kingdom of God.
Well, we really saw that played out, and that's interesting. I mean, that's really, as you said, that's what Paul was talking about.
That's right. Yeah, that was it. So we've already been there and done that, and see how ruinous it is.
Oh,
absolutely ruinous. So Paul knew, how dangerous it was. He could see, what was going to happen if they didn't stop quarreling among themselves and doing these types of things. Anything that would hurt, that would destroy the unity of this particular congregation. So,
well, it may have destroyed the unity for a little bit, but those who remained. This is one of the most mightiest churches I've ever been in, because it blows my mind as to how few people we are in this congregation. But look at what we have done. Look at what you guys have done. And it just continues, it's amazing that, because normally they say 20% of the church congregation are the ones that are the workers. And it's not so with this church. And, so it may have caused a split. People may have left, but look how strong you all are.
Yeah. And you're right, Loretta. You're right. I mean, look, I'm biased because I feel it, that I was on the right side. Who knows? But the thing is that you've seen St. John's persevere and emerge on the better side of all this. So yes, that's true. And
thank you, Marion New.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank a lot of people. They're able to get through this whole thing. But nevertheless, this is something that that I can testify is just absolutely ruinous to a congregation. And I just feel sorry every time I hear about another church splitting up, and there have been a number of them in Fallbrook that have. I mean, Presbyterians, I think the Baptist Church divided up. I don't recall any of the other ones, but I'm sure that there's a couple. Lutheran, I mean, it's just horrible. you know, the people are dividing up along on these lines. You know, we should be sending this message out from Paul and saying, you know, don't do this. But human nature being what it is. But you are right. St. John's is, you know, they went through its baptism of fire and it's come out solid, you know.
Well, I'm from the outside looking in because I'm the newer to the
And we appreciate that for sure. For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate that very much. Very much so.
Mhm.
the mighty little church.
Yeah.
It is. It
Yeah.
really is. I don't know how. I mean, I'm always baffled every year that we make the budget's good and that we stay in the budget. And I mean, and we usually have the same 30 or 40 people every week. And then, but there's 100 or 100 plus on the rolls. And I'm like, how do we do it? I just don't understand. I really don't.
It's called
And I
God's,
thought, what's that?
it's called God's blessing.
Yes.
sure.
He made you fruitful.
Yeah. Right.
You know, and then unfortunately we lost our, that one income that was coming in pretty steadily, which was the thrift shop. And it was such a sad thing for the community, you know, because the community loved it so much. And so it was just, and I thought, wow, that was pretty significant. And yet here we are still standing. It just, you know, still standing.
But God is opening up doors in other places.
Sure.
And, you know, got that property sitting over there for years and years and years. And, you know, there's so many options and so many things that can happen.
Yeah.
And all good. I don't see anything bad at all, you know, and that will strengthen us too, you know, again.
Well, we're not going to wait on that. We got some things coming up that are
Yeah.
more immediate. So,
Okay.
you know, the last chapter hadn't been written yet. So good.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to the pie auction because I want to present Father Leland with another pie.
Oh, good. Very good. That's a great
Yes,
aspect.
that's coming up. That's right. That's
Yes,
right.
it is. And I'm looking at John like, okay, open up your wallet.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm gonna get me some pies for sure. Okay. Anyone want to read number 3? Okay,
Want me
I
to
guess
read it? Okay,
you can if you want, or I can read it. I'll
go ahead.
and read
I'll
it.
let you read it.
Well, thank you, Dan.
I'll take number
So
4.
what counsel does Paul give to those Christians who thought they were wise by the standards of this age? See 1 Corinthians 3:18 printed below. Why does he give this counsel? Then that's in 3:19. If anyone among you thinks that he is wise by the standards of this age, let him become a fool, so that he may become wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. The apostles' counsel is that we exchange the wisdom of the world for the wisdom of God. If anyone among you thinks that he is wise by the standards of this age, let him become a fool so that he may become wise. We are to set aside the wisdom of this world with its pattern of man-centered thinking and start all over again. This time with the God-centered thinking that is the characteristic of true spiritual wisdom. The reason the apostle gives this counsel is the fact that the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. The wisdom that seeks to make man the center and supreme purpose of life, thereby assigning to finite man the position and honor that rightfully belongs to the infinite God, is culpable foolishness. That is to say, foolishness that shall finally be judged by God for what it is, the sinful effort of man to usurp for himself that which rightfully belongs to God.
I guess Richmond sometimes really boggles my mind.
I like
Okay.
that. I like that he said that. So,
But I think I read some I don't know, last week in some commentary that Paul really thought that they were that this was a very sarcastic statement that he made, because the Corinthians thought they were they were really wise folks.
Oh, of
And
course.
so he was, trying to just, put them in their place.
And this is what I have. So here he says, in effect, is a self-diagnostic test. Do you think that you are wise in this age? If so, this message is for you. In order to become wise, you are to have to give up your wisdom. This appeal bears a superficial resemblance to Socrates' well-known interpretation of the saying of the Delphi oracle, "This one of you, O human beings, is wisest, who, like Socrates, recognizes that he is in truth of no account in respect to wisdom." That's Plato. Indeed, this entire section of the Apology provides very interesting background for Paul's rhetorical treatment of wisdom throughout the opening chapters of 1 Corinthians. Paul, however, unlike Socrates, is not merely calling for humility and the cultivation of inquiring mind. Instead, he is calling for readers to take upon themselves the obedience of faith. Paul's particular application of the logic of the cross to wisdom and knowledge knowledge parallels the call of Jesus. If anyone wants to become my followers, let them deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For those who want to save their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. Mark 8:34-35. In the same way, those who cling to the world's wisdom will lose it, and those who surrender their wisdom for the sake of the gospel will find God's wisdom. Paul once again appeals to scripture in verses 19 and 20, again, to demonstrate. So again, I don't want to go ahead of myself. So yeah, you got to get humble and you got to have faith. And faith is, you can't prove it. You can't disprove it. You just have to believe. And for some people, that's really hard. That's really hard.
I got a little bit different take on that as I was going.
Okay.
Because I looked up my commentary, provided the verses that he quotes here. He catches the wise in their craftiness, and again, the Lord knows the thoughts of the wise, and that they are futile. Okay, so the thing is that he's, again, it's a warning to these people. Okay, he catches you're wise, you're crafty, and this is going to be your end. And the first one is from Job. For the wisdom of the world is foolishness with God. Oh no, where it is written, he catches the wise in their craftiness. He catches the wise in their craftiness. Now it's from verses Job 5, Job 5, 12 and 13.
12 to 13. Mm-hmm.
So he says, he frustrates the devices of the crafty, so that the hands achieve no, come on, Dale. He frustrates the devices of the crafty so that their hands achieve no success. He takes the wise in their own craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are brought to a quick end. There's a little bit of a warning in there. He's using Job to say, look, you think you're wise? You think you're wily? You think you're smart? God's going to bring your little enterprise here to a quick end. So I think that he uses that as a warning as well. Yes, he's explaining that wisdom is, the wisdom of God is foolishness to others, but he's saying too that you think you're wise in this world, you're in for some problems. Oh,
Didn't the apostles have the same problem? Because at one point they were saying who's going to be able to sit on the right side, who's going to be the head of this, who's going to do that, and and I know it's not the same, but they were using their worldly wisdom, like we'll erect a temple for you and for Moses, and I forget for whoever else was there, the 3 temples, and and all I can picture is Jesus doing.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But
Right.
let me make a point here, though. I think what he's saying is that that's a matter of arrogance. You're saying, yes, I'm going to can I sit at your right hand? Or can I, or, the mother saying, can I, have my
Yeah.
son hand in your left hand? But here he's saying, you're crafty, you're wily, you think you're smart, okay, and you're doing these things, and I tell you, as Job has found out, or as Job warns you, these things will bring you to a bad end.
Yeah,
like-
like this.
But it's like, okay, we're going to raise money for the church, but it's going to be a Ponzi scheme. We're wise and crafty, we're gonna bring in money, send in these, and we're gonna give you a little return on this. We're gonna send you a little something. You can swindle people. I mean, I'm not saying anything against radio or television preachers,
Investment.
but the thing is that sometimes that borders on that type of thing. They're wise and crafty, and they're bringing in money on the basis of people's faith. And that's and Paul's, I think that Paul's saying that's not where you're supposed to go. That will bring you to a quick end. So I agree, I agree that it's that we're saying here that, that man's foolishness is nothing compared to God's wisdom. Man's wisdom is nothing compared to God's wisdom.
Yeah.
But he's also giving them warning there. Look, you get too smart for yourself, and you're going to have troubles. So that's just, and I'm just pulling that from the quotations that he's taking there. Paul is really good. I mean, he's pretty sharp. He knew his Old Testament really well. He draws from Isaiah, I mean, all the time. And this is the first time I've seen him draw from Job.
Yeah.
He's seen him draw from Isaiah a lot, but Job, this is the first one I've seen from Job.
Well, he was a Pharisee at one time,
Oh yeah, sure.
Oh.
He knew his Old Testament backwards and forwards.
Yes. And I think that's what helps us, because he's got that behind him, that's the word of God, and he's expounding on it. And God's given him the ability to do that, say, whoa,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a really sharp guy.
Yes.
He's really sharp.
Yeah, and I find myself sometimes, and I've thought about this before, when I've always liked Paul. Paul has always been, anything in scripture that he wrote, I'm all about it. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I put him up there right with God, because I just, yeah, we'll read that stuff. But but let's do something with Paul, because I just, kind of a fan. So, but I have to be careful when I almost become this worshipy about him, because everything he says, I just stop, it's, and he was really good about, this is not about me. This is about who has, I am speaking on behalf of the Holy Spirit, God and Holy Spirit. And what a humble person,
Well, he had his days too.
Yes,
Sure.
he did.
Because when you read those letters, sometimes you're thinking, is he reminding himself too?
Sure.
Right.
He might be, exactly.
And like you said, we don't know what's going on with God. He picked this man, right? And he goes blind. Like, why do you persecute me? Why are you persecuting me? I'm thinking, how did he get from this guy from Saul to Paul? Because he blinded you for a while, like, it to me, because he saw what was inside. He
Yeah.
saw what was inside. And wow, look what he's done.
Yeah.
I want you to help build my church.
Sure.
But I did, but to your point, Loretta, when you talked about Jesus and the disciples, there is something about, Peter did say, I believe that you're the Son of Man. And that he was the one where the temple started, because isn't it Peter where we got the Catholicism? Isn't Peter part of that?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the Catholic
Yeah.
Church has considered him to be the rock.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're my rock. So, and
Every pope that we've had is Peter. I don't care what new name you give them
Yeah.
or what name they pick. When you talk to him, when he is talked to by others, they call him Peter. They don't call him by his Pope name.
Yeah.
You know?
He's in that lineage, you know.
Yes.
Oh,
The
my
Pope is in the
gosh.
direct lineage of Peter.
Yes.
Well, I do think it is very interesting that, at least in my experience, and I don't have a lot of it, but Catholic churches to this day are packed. They are packed. I go in, this was years ago before I went to St. John's, and I was kind of, I've always been Episcopalian. Let me just check out some other churches. Catholic church, I didn't know that I couldn't take communion. I figured I was baptized Christian, I could take communion, but I found out last week, if you're not a Catholic in a Catholic church, you can't take communion. So I blaspheme the church, but I digress. But it's packed. I mean, I had to pack in my kids. There's a police presence outside when they're getting traffic. And I mean, any Catholic church I've ever been around, it's been to the brim. I don't know if that's your experience, Loretta, but I just think that that's very interesting. And
Well, let me
Yeah.
tell you, when the Pope visited Guatemala, and that was way back, I forget which one, the heavyset one, I don't know, the thinner one, no, the heavyset one. What happened in the country, and he was going to go in his car and drive through the city. And what they did was, and it wasn't just Catholics, it was all the churches, all the Protestant churches, everyone linked arms. You stood with a group of people you knew. You linked arms with someone you knew. You linked another arm, that person linked arms with somebody that he knew, and the line just kept going. And that was to protect him, because the president at the time, I believe, in Guatemala was a kind of a dictator, and he was kind of a little crazy, I think it was the one that he made all the professions, including doctors, and this is something that my cousin told me, because he's a doctor, and he had to wear an emblem on his clothing showing that he was a doctor, and he made everybody do that, but to protect the Pope.
wow.
Because it's a very religious country, it's as much as the craziness with the people disappearing, the military and all that, but the people are very religious, and they all linked arms with people that they knew, because you didn't want to link arm with someone you didn't know, because you didn't know whether they were going to be trying to kill the Pope or not. And it was like that. And that was something, again, my cousin was telling me what was happening when the Pope came through. Nothing in the newspapers, nothing said anywhere
Yeah, I've
else.
never heard of that.
Yeah,
That's
no,
crazy.
it's just
Crazy.
amazing.
But
It
I
is
think that you probably shouldn't try to make any generalizations there about the Catholic Church. They face the same problems.
Sure, that's been my experience. And that's, I'm like, man,
Yeah.
what are
but
we
you know,
not doing? I don't know.
The thing is, it depends upon which parish you go to. And believe me, there are some that are very, very, very strong parishes. But the thing is, and I've been to them, because my wife her best friend is Catholic, and I go to a lot of Catholic things, and we're
Sure.
family, in ways. But the thing is that they face the same problems, that all churches do right now in terms of.
Oh yeah, I mean, Catholics have been through some stuff. So yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt. I mean, there's all kinds of
they've
movies
done
about
some
them, and
Yeah, so we're all bearing our crosses right now, to include.
absolutely, I just find it fascinating. The ones up here.
Well, the
So
thing is too is that that church is very, very for those that remain in the church, they are very, very conscious about bringing up their children as Catholic.
Yes.
Now there's some that will leave, but the thing is that they're conscientious about bringing up their children with Catholic identity.
Yeah.
And
They
and
say that if
help.
you raise a child Catholic for 7 years of their lives, they may leave, but they will come back.
Sure. And there
Just-
are many wonderful things about the Catholic Church, which draw
Yeah.
people back. But the thing is, it's a tough world out there right now for Christians. So,
Yes, it is.
so
I told my kids, I said, when you have babies,
yeah, that's
gotta
right.
hook it up. We gotta hook them up.
Right.
So yes, very challenging. So I'll see to it
I-
myself. I have to.
I told you I'd read number 4.
Okay.
Okay. What exhortation does the apostle give the church in verse 21a? What do you think he means? So then let no one boast in men. In verse 21, the apostle exhorts us, let no one boast in men. That is to say, we are not to place our confidence in men. We are not to find our identity in our allegiance to any man or human organization. We are not to find our source of significance in man-centered enterprises. Great temptation of these Corinthian Christians was to identify themselves with a particular individual, placing their confidence in him and giving their devotion to him rather than focusing on Christ, giving him the preeminence and making him the supreme object of their devotion. And I looked at my translation said, let no one boast in human leaders. It didn't say,
Mhm.
so that makes that a little twist on it,
Mhm.
Right.
and probably brings it a little bit better focus, I think.
Mhm.
He's saying, don't boast in your human leaders. They're nothing. It's Christ that is behind it.
Right.
So, but we've seen
We've
what
been fighting this forever, haven't we?
absolutely. Boasting in your human leaders. Oh yeah.
Yeah, there's so much craziness in the world right now.
That's beyond our scope of our discussion.
That's correct. That's correct. So again, but yeah, absolutely. So traditionally, you read the last one, Leland, Dale. So would you like to read that, or would someone else like to read that?
Can you read it again? You want me to read it?
Unless someone else wants to read it.
I mean, read them all. That's fine with me. I don't care. I need to.
Go Dale.
Okay.
Go, Dale.
All right.
Take us out, Dale.
What does the apostle inform the church in verses 21b, 23, pointed below? All things are yours, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas, or the world, or life, or death, or things present, or things to come. All things are yours, and you belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. 1 Corinthians 3:21b, 3:21b to 23. The reason we as Christians are not to boast or glory in men is the fact that all things are yours. That is to say, all Christian leaders, including all of their teaching and ministry, is in service to the Church of Christ. Their ministry is to present Christ to us and bring us into an ever deeper relationship with Christ. The focus of their ministry is to be Christ and his church, rather than causing the focus upon themselves because of their ability to minister. Having stated that all things are yours, the Apostle Paul now expands that statement to the broadest possible dimension: the world, life, and death, things present, things to come. In what sense are all things yours? All things have been put in subjection to Christ. Note Ephesians chapter 1, verse 22. And the Church of Christ and the Church of Christ collectively, including each believer in Christ individually, has been joined to Christ to share in his inheritance. Note Romans 8:17. By way of illustration, when a woman marries a man, she shares in all his possessions and holdings. Although all things belong to us as believers in the Lord Jesus Christ, we do not belong to ourselves. You belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to you. We belong to our faithful Savior who loved us and gave himself up for us, and together with him, we belong to God as his most beloved and treasured possession. Okay. I got
Love it, love it.
a
Go
comment.
ahead.
All right. Yeah, I'm sorry. I got another one here. But I think this is pretty cool, actually. I think he says it, I think he capsulizes it pretty well. And he comes on, Paul comes on with a really interesting perspective here. He's saying all things are yours, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas, or the world or life or death, or all things present, all things to come, all things are yours. All things are yours as the congregation of God. You don't belong to Paul. You don't belong to Apollos. You belong to Cephas. And it's the other way around. You are the congregation. You are the temple of God, and Paul belongs to you. Apollos belongs to you. Cephas belongs to you because they're ministers, and they're supposed to be doing their job in terms of expanding the kingdom of God. And your congregation, you as a temple, you as a people, you as this body belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. So you are linked to God through Christ. So yeah, I agree with some of these things he says here, but I think that Paul is really making an important point here is that you don't belong to you in this Corinthian congregation. You don't belong to Paul. You don't belong to Apollos. You don't belong to Cephas. They belong to you. They're your ministers. They're the ones that are supposed to be serving you. So I think he really hits home there with that point. And he's building on that idea of you are the people, you are the temple. You're the people of God. These people don't. You're not supposed to be following them. They're supposed to be following you. They're supposed to be serving you. And I think
more like a mentor. There are mentors.
Sure, absolutely.
At a certain point, your mentor, when you say, okay, I'm moving on to a different level of spirituality. I want more of the meat, and they move on to someone else who's supposed to mentor them, and you keep going and going until God says, you're home.
Sure. Well, it's a little bit like St. John's, okay, we have Father Leland. He's a great priest, but the thing is that he's to be serving the congregation. We're not to be serving him, or anybody else at St. John's. You're supposed to be serving the congregation, the community of God, not them serving you. So I mean, Paul, I think he hits a home run there with that whole idea, and it puts things into perspective. And then because St. John's is a temple of a community, we belong to Christ, and Christ belongs to God. So therefore we belong to God. So I think his reasoning there is pretty darn good.
Yes. Yep. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, I don't know.
Everything belongs to God. Everything.
Sure. Absolutely.
Including us.
Absolutely.
Including us. We are here temporarily. Always have to remember that. I mean, I want to live on this earth as long as I can, but I do wonder what it's like up in heaven. So I do.
Well, Joanna, you're one of those persons that's that's helping to enlarge the temple, as you do this work. So just
I can't do it without you guys, though. That's for sure. So, and I never think I'm doing enough, and maybe there is no such thing as enough. So I don't know, but I appreciate when people say that, but I'm like, I'm not really doing.
Well,
but
not like Loretta and her husband and all of you guys, all of you.
But if you felt it was enough, then what would you do? If you came to a point and you said, okay, that's enough, what will you be doing?
If what do you mean that's enough of what? What do you mean?
You know how you're saying serving, and I want to serve, and continue, and it's like an addiction. You can't stop. What would you be doing? Because if you sit still,
Would I what?
I mean, if you stop, you say, okay, I've done enough, and you stop,
Oh, no, I won't do that.
You would, I think you would literally starve from lack of
Yeah.
spiritual, I mean, because that's what's feeding you. That's what's keeping
Of
us all
course.
alive,
Of course.
and you can't stop that,
Right.
it's breathing air,
Yeah, it's part of my
and-
soul. Yeah. It's like
Yeah.
it, and yeah, even as a therapist, when I talk to people that have a faith and they've lost their faith for whatever reason, it's like, well, that's kind of part of you disconnecting from yourself. So, you can go to church, or you can, pray, and you can yell at God. I promise you, he'll listen. He's probably heard a lot worse than what you're going to say. So, as long as you're connecting to him, and when you connect to him, then we've learned that, or to whatever your faith is, that you connect to yourself. And again, and we read it tonight. Serving God is true freedom. That's the freedom. I can be myself. All of my sins, all of my quirks, all of my secrets, none of that is being hidden by him. And sometimes when I'm driving or whatever, and I'm like, oh, what would Jesus do? Oh, I know what, and I love that. It's like, hello, let's just, you're getting like kind of off track here. So like, oh, what would Jesus do? You got to pray for him. Got to pray for him. And I heard that in AA, and then it gets reiterated at church. So it's, and I love that. Again, AA brought me closer to God. It brought me closer to God. And this Bible study has brought me closer to my understanding of the Bible, because I thought I knew it and I didn't know anything. Nothing. So I'm really grateful. And I can remember saying like, oh, that's in so-and-so. That's in this scripture. I read that the other day. I love it. It's just, and it always happens at the right time. Like, something's going to happen where we're going to be something in 1 Corinthians, and it's going to be really something. So anyway, well, another wonderful session. I am so grateful that everybody was here, and all of the things that you guys had to say and add to it. I hope that you got something out of it tonight.
Absolutely. We did.
Yeah,
So
thank you,
wonderful.